All right, good morning. Steve Palazzolo has had the NFL Podcast of the Year. His show, Check the Mic. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and the other 20 different platforms you can find it. Check the Mic. Steve Palazzolo, NFL Insider. He joins us on the Out of Bounds show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Mudbugs is open this weekend. Best crawfish in Mississippi, best shrimp, best crab legs, and I don't know how many beers on tap, but they've got Key City, Mississippi Queen, Key City, Mi Vida, and Ice Cold, Michelob Ultra, and Busch Light. Mudbugs is open at the Reservoir, and Mudbugs open downtown Brandon to get your crawfish shrimp fix before they close for the season, which is going to happen sooner than later. Hopefully they'll be open through Father's Day. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. This is 105.9 The Zone ESPN. We're streaming live on the Out of Bounds radio app. You can watch the show right now on YouTube. Search Out of Bounds Sports. Show is also brought to you by award-winning Elijah Craig Bourbon. We want to welcome in Steve Palazzolo, NFL Insider. Do you have a funny story for us, kids or parenting story, within the last week or 2 or 3 weeks?
No, more of a proud dad moment. My 8 and 9-year-olds play baseball together, and I guess it's kind of funny. My 9-year-old was pitching. It was a 5-0 game last night, and he gave up 5 runs to tie it. And but then my 8-year-old got to have a walk-off hit because of it. And
Nice.
and my 8-year-old's not hitting the ball very well. You know, he was struggling all year, and we were working hard and practicing, and he kept getting hit by pitches, which was great. And then he finally got to, it was like second hit of the season, and it was a walk-off. So they were all excited. I really don't care about the results, but it was kind of fun seeing them excited about that.
Dude, that's awesome, man. Is your 9-year-old your oldest?
He is, yeah. And it was, you know, he had the, we'll call it his second blown save win of the year. So, you know, paying homage to me. That's how I used to do it when I pitched. Blow the save, and then you get the win, and you know when the team comes back. So that was fun.
That's awesome for our listeners. Steve Palazzolo got to AAA, San Francisco Giants organization, and he had it figured out. Blow the save, stay in long enough where the team comes back, get the dub.
That's right.
And
how you do it.
I love it. Okay, Aaron Rodgers, is he going to play for the Steelers, or is he going to retire? What's happening here?
Oh yeah, we're all experts on Aaron Rodgers' mind and what he's going to do, but I would say probably going to play. I mean, the Steelers made all their moves this offseason with that intention. So unless he really screws them over, I would expect Rodgers to play for the Steelers. But who the heck knows? I mean, there's always that chance that he decides to retire, that he moves on, that something comes up, and Steelers are kind of left with Mason Rudolph as their starter, but I would expect Rodgers to come back and be the starter for the Steelers.
Okay. If he's healthy, so let's assume, I mean, if he's 100% healthy, even though he's 40 or whatever, you know, where do you put him in the league if he is healthy and play? Let's say he's not playing great, but he's playing good. Where does Aaron Rodgers land now?
I think he's a mid-tier quarterback. I think he's, you know, last year was tricky because the way I keep describing it was, you know, there were some physical limitations coming off of the Achilles. I think that showed up when he was trying to avoid pressure, and you know, he definitely took some hits maybe he wouldn't have taken earlier in his career. But as far as physically throwing the ball, I think there was zip on the ball. He made some really nice tight window throws. I think physically he's still okay and capable. He'll be another year removed from that Achilles surgery. So assuming he's still working hard and, you know, getting in shape. But the thing that I think held him back was his system, quote, his offensive system, bringing in his players, his favorite play caller. And I thought they were running a system that did not create open throws, that did not put offensive players in position to succeed. And I think that's a lot of Rodgers' fault. And so the offense overall was poor. It was below average, right? So that's the tricky one for me. I think physically he could still do it, maybe not at a top 10 level, but at least, top 15. But he's going to have to, have receivers open and, have good play calling. And again, I don't know if they have that in Pittsburgh, but I would rather see Arthur Smith give it a shot rather than having Aaron Rodgers run same offense he was running back in like 2015. So that was the issue. I think Rodgers could still play. The shouty shows would just be like, Aaron Rodgers is terrible. He's cooked. But there was still something there, right? There was still a little something there. But I think a lot of the failures were probably on Rodgers and more of like a mental thing and a system thing rather than him physically.
Yeah, and then there was the Jets because they're terrible. So you mix all that up. Yeah, okay. He had the NFL Podcast of the Year, Steve Palazzolo. His show, Check the Mic. You can find it everywhere, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Steve P. joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. Show is brought to you by the Armory on Lake Harbor in Ridgeland for all your firearms, optics, and suppressors. The Armory, Lake Harbor in Ridgeland, right in front of Kroger. How would you – it's not a disappointment because he's a Hall of Famer and he has a Super Bowl. But over a 10-year window, he was maybe 12 years. He was the most talented or in the top 3 in the NFL. So if this is it, even if he goes to the Steelers and they go 9-8 and whatever, like how would you frame up his career? It's not a disappointment, but you feel like he left some on the table. But how would you frame it up, Steve?
Yeah, I think kind of like Peyton went out with that last ring, even though he had very little to do with it. You probably would have liked to see another one for Rodgers. I think maybe even similar to Breeze, right? They got it a little bit earlier in their career, especially as early as Rodgers got that, 2010. That was his 3rd full year as a starter. And then the Packers came close. A lot of NFC Championship disappointments, a lot of some divisional round disappointments. So I think, there's a little bit left wanting there. I think Rodgers, absolutely one of the best QBs of all time, one of the most efficient. I think very good, obviously, at taking care of the ball and not turning it over. There's also something, too, I think where he was lacking, Rodgers, compared to, say, Tom Brady, Peyton, what Mahomes does. Rodgers didn't really have that late game magic consistently. Of course, there's some plays, but he didn't have that consistent ability to bring his team back. And I do think there was something to his game where he lacked the right aggressiveness at the right time, or he just wasn't taking the right chances. Whereas Brady and Manning, Mahomes, I think they were calibrated for that. But Rodgers, you're talking about one of the best quarterbacks of all time, clearly. He does have the ring, so you're not talking, hey, Marino, best with no rings. But yeah, of course, I think if you're a Packers fan and you knew you were going to win in 2010, year 3 of Rodgers under center, you'd expect, hope to get 1 or 2 more. So I think that's a little bit of a disappointment for Packers fans.
Wow. Okay, so best with no ring in your I think of 3 guys, there could be more. I mean, there are more out there. I mean, you could go back to Fran Tarkenton, who had all these opportunities, and Jim Kelly, and they actually had ops. I know Dan Marino had his first year, and then they never made it back. But let's go down this rabbit hole because it's fun. We are the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. He is Steve Palazzolo, had the NFL Podcast of the Year. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance Guest Line. Okay, so best to never win one. Dan Marino. I'm just going to throw out some. I want to get your thoughts. Marino, Dan Fouts, and I think arguably the most underrated quarterback in the history of the league, Warren Moon. Tell me your thoughts when I throw out those 3, Steve P.
I mean, for me, it's definitely Marino. I mean, Fouts and Moon. I think for the average fan, maybe they are underrated, especially the passing production that Fouts had, the longevity and passing production that Warren Moon had. But Marino was out of this world in a few different areas. He had that, again, the disappointment of like his second season, 1984, still maybe the best quarterback season of all time. What Marino did in that era of football with 5,000 yards or almost 5,000 yards and 48 touchdowns. And then I actually I was helping someone do a top 30 quarterback piece, and I wrote up Marino, and he led the league in sack rate, I think his first 7 seasons in the NFL. And, for fans that don't really understand. I mean, if you look at a quarterback sack rate, that's usually on him. It's not the offensive line. Peyton was great at it. Brady was great at it, but Marino was the best. 7 straight times, and he got sacked like 6 times one entire season. So he was incredible at just quick release, seeing the ball, getting rid of it, driving the ball down the field. But yeah, after the early career success that the Dolphins had with Marino, they just never got back. They never had the consistent run game, defense. They never went on that run. And so I think that's certainly a disappointment. But Marino, not just talent-wise, but even just the way he played, ability to create big plays and not take those negative plays, not take sacks the way Marino did, I think was exceptional.
Did Don, I know how highly thought of he is and was, and what they did in 1972, going undefeated, I think it was. But was Don Shula, did he let Dan Marino down in Miami by not getting the running game up to par and the fact that their defense couldn't stop me and you?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably something to that. There's probably something to that element. It's also interesting sometimes. I think, especially back then, you had teams from the South. Look, I know the West Coast teams kept winning, but teams from the South that maybe put up bigger passing numbers and then struggled in the playoffs or struggled down the stretch because they didn't have that fully balanced team, or the defense wasn't as good, or whatever it may have been, or they didn't have the physicality. There may have been some element to that. I think it's always been a passing league, but yet you definitely need more balance on your team once you get into the playoffs. Obviously, it's difficult. I think the QB is the biggest driver for wins, but it's not always 1-to-1. It's not as simple as that. So clearly there are other factors in winning games, even though I think Brady and Mahomes have a special ability above and beyond the other elite quarterbacks that the other guys weren't able to put it all together. But yeah, I think there's an element of the team building in Miami that may have let Marino down. And yeah, I mean, if I'm saying Packers fans should be disappointed with one ring, then Dolphins fans absolutely should be disappointed not getting that Super Bowl with Marino during that stretch.
I just thought about that. Miami hasn't won the Super Bowl since they went undefeated in 72. Yeah. Is that right? With Greasy and Zonka?
I believe so. Was there one I wasn't alive in the 70s. So I haven't memorized every Super Bowl in the 70s.
All right, you're fired. Thanks for coming on. No, all right. So, yeah, damn, the Dolphins haven't won it. I mean, I thought the Cowboys drought was bad, and then the
72 and 73.
Oh, they went back to back.
Did they go back to back there? Yeah,
I don't know.
72 and 73.
Okay. So, and then who else I was thinking of? Oh, the Bears haven't won it since 85. They played for it, and Peyton beat them with Urlacher. That was a weird team that made it. Rex Grossman at QB. That was odd. I think they beat everybody 13-10 that year or something. Good hell.
Yeah. They had the Monday night game against Arizona where Dennis Green went crazy.
Oh, Dennis Green. Yeah.
Grossman had like a 0 passer rating and they won. It was crazy.
Man, that's like Jake Barker
minimum
throwing for 13 yards in the national championship game in 1992 against Miami and Alabama winning. Incredible. All right. Steve Palazzolo on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. So you still believe this thing's done because the Steelers wouldn't have made these moves. You expect Aaron Rodgers to be signed or picked up, whatever the terminology is for wherever he is in his world in the next week or two?
I mean, I don't know timing wise. Like everybody thought this was going to happen in March. I joked that it might take months, but I thought they'd have it sorted by now. I think it's by training camp at least. Training camp's 6 weeks away about. So I think within the next 6 weeks, we should have an answer for Rodgers going to Pittsburgh. The alternative is interesting, though, because if he didn't play, Mason Rudolph is the starter. I think the rest of their roster is not terrible. I think they could use another receiver after trading George Pickens. They're not in a bad spot, the Steelers. But then they have a ton of draft picks next year. They already loaded up on picks next year when there's supposed to be a lot more QBs coming out. So I would be interested. I think either way, they're probably drafting a QB next year. But I would be interested what happens if they just, I don't know, went with Mason Rudolph this year. Maybe don't win a ton of games. and they're in position to get their choice of QB next year potentially. So that there's a slight percentage chance that that's on the table as well.
Okay. I think you're selling. It sounds to me like you're giving the Steelers a little too much of the benefit of the doubt.
As far as Rodgers?
No, as far as their roster.
Well, I think their defense is loaded.
Okay.
They have a lot of potential on the defense. The offensive line's young.
Okay.
Pass catcher wise, it's DK Metcalf. They don't really have a true number two, so I have concerns there. But their defense has a chance to really keep them in games, so they're loaded up front. I think that's where where I like what the Steelers have done roster wise.
Goes back to they want to win. They're going to win 13-10 if they have Mason Rudolph, or try to, and if they have Rodgers, they can get in possibly in the 20s. How do you think Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf will sync up?
Yeah, interesting one, because I think, DK's always had Tyler Lockett on the other side, or last year it was Jackson Smith and Jigba. He's always had someone else. Right now, the depth chart is not good for the Steelers as far as depth goes. So I think there's a little bit more pressure on DK. I think they'll be fine, though. I think Rodgers gives I thought Rodgers would be great with Mike Williams coming in from the Chargers last year, but they never got on the same page. So predicting who Aaron Rodgers is actually going to have chemistry with, I think, is a challenge. But on paper, it should work, right? I mean, DK's got the great size and speed. Rodgers will give him opportunities to make plays down the field. What I can't predict is if DK's always going to be at the right place at the right time, exactly the way Rodgers likes it. Rodgers has not really developed receivers a whole lot the last few years, because I think he's been, kind of picky in making sure that guys are on the same page. So again, skill set wise, I think DK Metcalf is fine. I mean, he creates big plays down the field, and Rodgers will give him shots to do that. But if there's a precision element to DK's game that's lacking, that Rodgers, that where Rodgers won't like that, I mean, that's also a possibility as well.
Okay. So is DK top 5, top 10, top 15 for you at this point in his career?
Oh, closer to top 15 than top 5. I mean, he's not as well-rounded and, able to dominate like A.J. Brown or Jamar Chase or CeeDee Lamb or some of those other top receivers. But as far as consistent, pure deep threat, I think DK is as good as it gets with the size and speed and ability to flip the field. But yeah, I don't think he's as polished as some of the other top receivers. So he's closer to top 15 or 20 for me. And I'm not sure if he's the guy that you want as like a high volume number one, which is why I'm curious how this works with Pittsburgh, because he always had that complementary piece on the other side. And right now the depth chart does not have that for Pittsburgh.
Okay. What's the latest on CJ Stroud with the Houston Texans?
Supposedly there's some kind of shoulder that has him out right now. Shoulders usually aren't. I mean, look, shoulders usually aren't a good thing to be dealing with.
Right. Ask Derek Carr.
Yeah, I mean, shoulder. The way I've always understood it, shoulder generally can sap your velocity, and elbows more your control. But either way, you don't want to be dealing with injuries. It's still 6 weeks from camp, though. Like, you still have a lot of time. But you're in June, right? I mean, that's the other thing. You're 6 months removed from the end of the season, 5 months removed. And, you don't want that either. So, yeah, I think it's just they're saying it's just rest and not really a concern. But, anytime a QB isn't throwing, I think you have to keep an eye on it.
Okay. Do you believe that Jackson Dart will give Russell Wilson all he wants in New York for the starting job?
I don't know if he will right now. I felt like Dart needed some time. I think coming out of Lane's system, you need some time. And my theory on this is always, like, it doesn't – look, the Giants shouldn't do what's best for the Giants for this year. They should do what's best for Jackson Dart and his development. I thought the Patriots did a great job last year with Drake May. They gave him 30% of the reps when he was the backup, which is unheard of. It's usually like 5% that the backup gets. But they said, no, Drake May is the most important player on this team. We're going to develop him even if he's not the starter. I would love to see teams do that, right? So you don't have to put the rookie in there. You don't have to put him in to save your job. But I have a feeling that's what's going to happen with the Giants. You see Russ for 5, 6, 7 weeks, and then Jackson Dart goes out there. If they're sitting there with 1 or 2 wins. So yeah, I think I think they should do what's best by him, which is get him ready for 2026.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm not sure that he would necessarily challenge Russ for this year. Who knows? He could. But I would do everything I could to get Jackson Dart ready for next season.
Do you think Lane...
Which might include playing this year.
Right. Okay, I got you, like 20 30%. Steve Palazzolo had the NFL podcast of the year. Do you think Lane Kiffin would be a good, 15, 16, 17 years ago was way too early. He's now a top 10 coach in college football. Do you believe that he could be a good NFL head coach?
Yeah, I do. Somebody said this years ago, if you flipped Lane Kiffin's career upside down, it would make more sense, right? Like going from the Raiders to USC, and then it kind of like worked his way back down. Like there was definitely a point in his career where everything was in reverse. Like he started in the NFL, then to USC, then to smaller schools. But look, I think he's learned a lot. You've seen him evolve through the years. You've seen him change just a ton of the way he operates, and then had a lot of success in all of his most recent spots. And so I think that's the biggest thing with coaches. We talk a lot about Kyle Shanahan all the time, and he's got the system, and that's what makes him special. But what really makes coaches special is the ability to grow, learn from mistakes, adjust to your circumstances. And I think that's one thing. Like Dan Quinn did that, I think, when he left the Falcons, went to the Cowboys, and now he's with Washington. So you see this evolution of Dan Quinn. I think you've seen that with Lane Kiffin through the years. And I think the success that he's had recently at Ole Miss shows, hey, he could make some adjustments. Maybe he does deserve a shot in the NFL.
Interesting what will happen there. He's on a roll in Oxford, but he tried to get his name in the hat for the Raiders from his time. The last time he obviously, I guess, had cultivated some kind of relationship with Mark Davis, but couldn't get anything going there. That's a tough jump, though. Not many people do it. Saban and Spurrier, it wasn't as successful as we thought. Saban wasn't a bomb. He was kind of 500-ish, and the passing on the Breeze thing, cost him. But it's rare you can make that jump. But I think today the games mesh together more. Do you agree with that, Steve?
Yeah, I think so. And again, it's not just like system. Like we always talk about Lane's offensive system. I think it's great for college. I think some of that stuff wouldn't work in the NFL, but the key is the adjustments. But there's definitely a lot of college concepts meshing with the NFL. And then again, GM is being a CEO and it's managing people, and so there's a lot more to it than just X's and O's. But I think Lane's shown that he can evolve and change a lot through the years.
I hope 8 and 9-year-old baseball is awesome for the rest of the week.
Thank you. We're having a ton of fun. We get another game tonight, another one this weekend. We're having some fun over here.
Nail biter, baby. Steve Palazzolo, Check the Mic is his NFL show. Be good, buddy. See you, man.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Oh, man. That was brought to you by Ice Cold Stella Artois, which is great beer. Raise a toast. It's Brian O'Connor Day in the state of Mississippi. He's going to steal some of the oxygen in the room from Lane Kiffin and Keith Carter, who are running the state. He will be introduced tonight at 7 o'clock, Duty Noble. They're going to let him fire up the grills, plus they're opening the concession stands. Food and beer, all at Duty Noble as they introduce Brian O'Connor to you.